It is, yeah, far enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me come over here. Right. Well, they'll be required curb and gutters, but the question is, are they going to prefer putting it in and with a payment, or yeah, right? And where we're kind of like changing that, but no, I didn't know, so I put it in there, and I was going to talk to Larry, but I did not talk to him, so so no, yeah, so I was hoping to catch him. If he comes in and say, hey, were you thinking about putting the curb gutter sidewalk in now, or do you want to do whatever our thing is? Are we escrowing or deferring? I guess we're escrowing right now. So that's our deferment right now. Because there's so it is kind of confusing because there's three lots that are existing and then there's a big massive parcel. So he just wanted to trim that one new parcel off of the big parcel. But then in the back, those three are all jagged, so he wanted to make those all even. So it's amending those three and then creating a new one. So really, I think the subdivision would just be for that one node. So, yes. And that's what we've been doing. So it's a little bit fuzzy in the past. Maybe we talk about it every minute, kind of pitch down on that a little bit more and say that is from that front part to that back part. Yes. Next month. Are showing developing that front portion. So it's one ginormous 60 acres. It's just developing just improvements, I should say. Just improvements. That's what I understand. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem like and that's if we're carving it up. I think we're just doing this one giant thing. It's this whole chunk right there. So that's what That'll work. Coming, but I would assume he wants to do the whatever you want to call it, the escrow, the deferred. I don't know what his son might be here. So as long as I can tweak that side, put it in there, and that way we can grant it. And say, I don't want that. I've seen it once there. Push that Okay, I'll go tweak that.
Alright, I'd like to welcome everybody out to today's planning commission meeting. Can everybody grab a seat and we're going to get started. We're going to start off the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance done by Commissioner Severing and the reverence done by Commissioner Wilson. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful we can be gathered here tonight, grateful for those who have given up time to come to this meeting. We're thankful for our good community and for those who put in so much effort to serve and help others out. Please help us to have a good night tonight, help us to have a good meeting, and pray that we may be civil and we can come away feeling satisfied with how the night went. We're grateful for our country and the freedoms that we enjoy here. Grateful for those who serve and protect this great land. Pray for them and their families. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you. We're going to go over with the consent items, which is the review of the minutes from April 11th meeting. Let's go over a few changes that need to be added to those. Amanda, do you have those?
Yeah, I just have a couple, just on the strategies that are listed, starting on page 4. Down at the bottom where it says reviewed and discussed. A lot of those we decided that we were going to try and address when we looked at the subdivision ordinance, so we probably just need to take off reviewed and discussed because we haven't really looked at those in detail yet. Other than that, I don't think I noticed anything.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the planning commission on April 11th with the changes as noted on the strategies.
Got a motion, do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? All right, concerning today's action items, we're going to move the first one, the Torgili property consideration, to the end, because I'm assuming that's when most of you are here, so we're not going to hold up everybody else's stuff because of that. So item A will be moved to the end, and we'll do B, C, and D first. But before we go into that, I just want to put out a public thank you to Mary Simpson. She served as the Plan Commission Chair for the past 5 years, and she was on the commission total for 9. She has just stepped down, and so we'll be looking for a new member to replace the open, the vacant spot. So we'll start with the conditional use permit request for Jacob Clement for oversized structure totaling 2520 square feet. Oh, sorry. Okay, we'll do we gotta entertain a motion to move that item.
I'll make a motion that we move the conditional use permit request for Torgili Hooper LLC to the final item on our agenda prior to citizen comment and move everything else up in order.
Have a motion to a second.
I'll second it.
You have 2 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, now we'll start with the conditional use permit for Jacob Clement for an oversized structure totaling 2520 square feet located at 5827 South, 6950 West.
We're getting motions in the back that people can't hear, so we might need to talk a little closer to our mic or get the sound turned up. Sorry.
Is there a representative from Jacob here? Want to come up and
John
give us?
Bryant to do the presentation first.
Oh, yeah, he has a presentation. Okay.
Sounds good. So unfortunately, we only have the one screen, so sorry, it's a little bit small. But this is a conditional use permit for Jacob Clement. You can see that he has it in here for total square footage is 2,520 feet, and the height structure is 22.5. And from here you can see where his lot is, and here is his site plan. And I have my presentation.
Jacob, you want to come up, give us your name and address, and then this brief overview of what you're looking to do here?
So I'm Jacob Clement, live at 5827 South, 6950 West. And we're looking at building a pole barn for storage of recreational and yard equipment.
Awesome.
So no power, no plumbing.
No.
Anybody else have any questions for him?
No, but you Kendrick.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open, enter a public hearing. Does anybody have anything they want to say? Come to the mic. And you have 3 minutes to voice any concerns, and you can take a seat, Jacob. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section, and I'll entertain a motion on this.
It's not a motion, but I'm still getting people saying they can't hear back here. So
I'm
is
talking.
there a way to
into this.
turn up the sound? I know there's sound up here and then there's sound back there. Is there a way to have both going at the same time?
Not with our system right now. Our microphones are currently getting worked on, so this is kind of our temporary service. If you guys can just talk as loud as you can for the time being. Okay, that'll be great.
We're trying.
Sorry.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for Jacob Clement at 5827 South, 6950 West, Hooper.
I'll second.
Can't hear or can't see or hear what you're.
They're talking about in the beat, they moved the first one to the
There's two seats right here.
There's a few seats at the front if you want to come on up, and it's going to help us out if everybody keeps it real quiet while we're talking up here. We'll try to talk loud.
Okay, I have a motion on this oversized structure. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. That passes.
The next one is a conditional use permit request for Lloyd and Donna Berkeley for an oversized structure totaling 1762 square feet with an ADU totaling 952 square feet, located at 5628 West, 5725 South. Brian, do you have a presentation for this one?
Yes, so like you said, here's on 5725 South. This is their property, and total square footage is 1,762. For the ADU, it's 952 feet, so it's within the limits. And then the height of the structure is 17 feet, 23 and 8 inches. So that's within the height restriction. And that's kind of the site layout right there. That's it.
Awesome. Is there a representative for Lloyd and Donna Berkeley here? Want to come up and tell us a little bit about your project? Give us your name and address for the record.
And this is my husband, Lloyd,
Okay.
and I'm Donna, and this is our daughter-in-law, Jamie, and we're all the Berkeleys. And I don't know the address.
5628 West, 5725 South.
And we would like to build an ADU in our son and daughter-in-law's backyard because my husband's losing the mobility, and we can't stay in our home anymore. So they've offered that we can build in their backyard, so we're just asking to do that.
Do you guys have any questions for them?
I do have a question. So on the application, the applicant name, it has Lloyd and Donna Berkeley, and then it has John and Jamie Berkeley. So are John and Jamie, you're the property owner,
Yes.
correct? So we just need to make sure, because Lloyd signed the application, but it needs to be the property owner that signs the application. The second part of the ADU, like the addendum that goes with it, that was signed by you guys, but they both need to be signed by the owner, just a technicality. And then the other thing is, the ADU application that was signed has the previous wording from our code on it, and so it doesn't match our current ordinance. That was updated back on August 3rd of 2023. And the only thing that really changed is that it stipulates, in the one that you signed, it states that the owner needs to occupy the primary residence. This changes the wording so that the owner can occupy either the primary residence or the accessory dwelling unit. And we actually updated it again earlier this year to add that it needs to be occupied for the duration if you rent out the other unit. So just so you're aware, I don't think it's going to change anything in your instance, but just so you're aware, you'll need to fill out the correct application because the one that we did was the old one. So.
Okay, and also there's a correction on the easement. The engineer put it at shorter than, and we know it's supposed to be the 10 feet. I think they have it at 8 feet. We know it's the 10 feet.
It's correct on there.
Oh, it is correct on there? Okay, good.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, you guys can sit.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and open this section up for public hearing, for public comments as well. Anyone that wants to come up and make any comments on their ADU structure, come to the front. You got 3 minutes. Give your name and address. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that and bring you back here for any further discussion or a motion.
I'll motion that we approve the conditional use permit for Lloyd and Donna Berkeley, which actually needs to be for John and Jamie Berkeley, not Lloyd and Donna. For an oversized structure totaling 1,762 square feet with an accessory dwelling unit totaling 952 square feet, located at 5628 West, 5725 South.
A motion, do we have a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. We'll go on to the next action item. This is final approval for a 4-lot subdivision located at approximately 4243 South, 6300 West for Larry Ropoletto. And Brian, you have a presentation on that?
Yes, so although it says 4-lot subdivision, it's really a one-lot subdivision with an amending of 3. So here you can see on 6300 West, and what is in blue is the new subdivision, so that's the new lot. And so it's shaving out, I guess it's just shaving 2 of the 3. So I said 4, but it's actually 3. So it just shaves a little bit of the back end of 2 existing lots, and then kind of making a flag in you know, looking at that. And so it's basically just creating one new lot and doing a lot amendment of 2 existing lots. So that's what is being proposed. And here's the plan, you can see that, the new lot. And that will make those, it'll shade those other 2 lots down. You can see that. It's hard to see, but it makes it the 1 acre for those other 2 lots, kind of shaving that off, squaring that up. I did not include in the letter in the packet, but here's the letter, and 2 of those houses, if you look, have the same address. So as we do this subdivision, we would like to clean up that address and get the addresses right. So we have 4 lots with 4 different addresses, and so that's really only the change there. Oops, wrong way. And then we have all of our approvals from outside entities. All of our comments have been addressed, and then it meets the frontage, all the lots do, and all of them also meet the acreage requirements. And then where this is kind of out in a ways, we're asking to have an escrow for the frontage improvements so that the owner doesn't have to put in the curb, sidewalk, and gutter at this time, because they need the 150 feet in front of that one lot, and they'd be the only one on the street. So our recommendation is to approve the South 4 subdivision with the deferred improvement escrow.
Is there a representative from Larry Repolletto?
Yeah.
Give us your name and address and just tell us a little bit about what you're doing here.
It's kind of like corporate Larry Ropolato. 4243 South, 6300 West in Hooper, but it's okay.
I just know he is the TJ trailer guy. You know?
Yeah, that's fine. So the only other thing that we would ask for, and this is for my son to move out there and worked on the farm our whole lives, and that is a deferral or an exception for a fence to go around from the farm acreage that we have. And so that would be the only thing that we're asking besides this here.
So that fence, that land use separation fence, it's all your property,
Yes,
correct?
yes, it is. Yeah. And the reason that it's a funny, weird shape is after I die, we need to get, there'll probably be a road going back west someday, but not while I'm alive.
Any other questions for Larry?
I had a question just for Brian. So on Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy, it says not applicable. What? How come?
Because they're already existing.
Oh, they're already there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that, yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
So they won't give you one because they already service it.
Okay.
We're going to go back into the dark ages and just hand
Well, I was just curious.
fire, you know.
Great question.
Okay, I think you're good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Being a public hearing, we'll open it up for public comment. Same deal, name and address, 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and bring it back for discussion or a motion.
I personally don't have an issue with the land use separation fence. It's all his property, so I don't think that matters. But we do need to have that escrow agreement in place in the packet before it goes up to city council, because this is final approval for us since it's a minor subdivision, right?
Do you want to make a motion with that condition?
Sure. I will motion that we recommend approval, final approval for the South 4 subdivision located approximately at 4243 South, 6300 West for Larry Rocolato. And that they have the escrow agreement for the curb and gutter in place by the time it gets up to city council. And that would be in their June meeting, correct? Does that give enough time?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, can I ask what's the amount? Talk to him
That
after.
guy, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Do we need to say a waiver of the land use?
Oh, sorry. And also, you'll need to have a waiver letter for the land use separation fence signed by the landowners, which is,
So, like, make
You just write a letter saying that you don't need to put a fence up, and we'll add it to the packet.
All right. Okay.
Okay, I've got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, thank you. Okay. Next one, we're gonna move on to the conditional use permit request for the Torgavy Hooper LLC for a group youth home drug and alcohol treatment center located at parcel number 087120003, lot 3. Do you have a presentation on this, Frank?
Yes, so, as most people are aware where this is at, so you kind of see where it's at, and I guess most of you probably can't see, but there's a little blue square that pops up. So we're looking at that southeastern corner of the Torgavy property for this drug and alcohol rehab center. And then you can see this is how the land currently is. That might be an old plat. Well,
No, that's right.
that is correct. Okay, so it's this bottom parcel there. And there it is, kind of in blue, so you can see where that center will be situated. And then blowing it up, it looks like it's just development around the drug and alcohol center. And so there's the landscaping and where that will be. And then there's kind of a render of what that building will look like. That's all.
That's all you got, huh?
That's all I got.
All right, is there a representative from the Torgavy Hooper LLC group? Can we get to come up? Come on up there and give us your name and address.
My name is Matthew Lowe. Do you need my address as well?
Yes, please.
5500 South Holiday Boulevard, Holiday, Utah, 84117.
My name is Casey Jones. My address is 13060 South 4th Street, Draper, Utah. I'm here representing New Beginnings, as they're aware. I can help answer questions, respond to comments as necessary.
Thank you. Let's start by giving us some information about what you're looking to do here. Maybe you can preemptively answer a lot of the questions.
Yep, I do have, if you guys are interested, I do have kind of a summary of what we're doing, if I could hand those out.
Can we get one of those?
So we can put it on the website so it will be available. I'm not sure how to get everybody one right now.
Yeah, this kind of provides a brief summary of what we were doing, kind of provides a lot of the talking points that isn't in the conditional use application. But essentially what we are proposing is a residential addiction treatment center. We're going to be catering to the youth, so our target market is up to 18 years old. We're going to look residential nature as you can look. Feel like that the plans fit into the community well. We will have 24-hour staffing at the facility, but none of the staff will be sleeping there. We kind of went over some of the security things we have. We feel like we have extensive security. We'll have cameras. We'll also, like I said, there will be a person awake on site 24 hours a day. We will get the proper state licensing, and that's kind of listed in here, the licensing that we'll get. We will have a psychiatric medical director for the facility, amongst psychologists, also counselors, and a cook, numerous other staffs. I'm actually partnering with a group out of Salt Lake that has extensive experience in this. I'm a land developer, but I've also have extensive experience with medical facilities. I built a surgical center over 20 years ago and did that for 7 years. And also currently managed the president of a medical research company. So have a lot of experience in this. We have a number of very well qualified medical directors that we anticipate once we build this and open this that have psychiatric degrees. It kind of talks about in this plan that everybody can read over. I don't want to bore people with all the details, but kind of our vision, what kind of therapy we're going to provide. To give a number, we're going to have up to 15 people at the facility at any given time. We won't exceed 15.
Patients only, and then it's staff.
Yeah, then we'll have the staff on top of that. For traffic, it's going to be really light, and we will have the patients that are living at the facility won't be leaving the facility very frequently. There will be some instances where they would leave the facility to get an outside doctor appointment or something like that. But the main traffic it'll generate would be the people, the staff coming and going from the facility, which should be pretty insignificant.
It's 8-hour shifts.
Yeah.
8-hour shifts, so the traffic from the staff will be minimal.
And we set it back so that the lighting won't be obtrusive to the neighborhood. Like I said, there may be some headlights coming in and out, but we're going to try to minimize that to the shift so that we have as little impact on the community as possible.
And the parking meets the zoning requirements, and it will be in the back of the residence, so it won't be in the street.
What is the typical time frame of treatment for the youth while they're there?
A short treatment for us would be 30 days, but we definitely would do sometimes up to 6 months, up to a year treatment. That's rare, but 30 to 120 days is not uncommon.
Does it operate like a charter school? So say that there's youth staying there for months at a time. How do you anticipate they would get schooling done? I'm just curious about that part of it.
Yeah, well, we have a curriculum, so yeah, we're going to make sure that they don't fall behind on things like that. But you know, we specialize as a treatment center, so that's our primary goal. And so some of those other things that come with it, there is time for that. And there's usually related to releases from their schooling needs and whatnot. Usually these are kids that need extensive counseling. I mean, it's pretty immersive on the rehabilitation.
Can you speak to your experience in this, and is this almost like a copy and paste of another facility you have run for this New Beginnings?
This is a unique building plan that we kind of picked for our lot and kind of our needs.
Not necessarily the building plan, but the operation.
Well, yeah. So this is the first one I've been involved with, but like I said, I've partnered with a group out of Holiday area in Salt Lake that have experience in this, and so they're going to be the more experienced arm of this.
Do you happen to know what their typical success rate is in treatment?
I mean, as far as the facilities are very successful. Our treatment rates, I'm not sure the exact statistics on it, but very well run and would meet or exceed industry standards.
Are you guys connected with the New Beginnings in Draper that was in West Jordan, and I believe there was one in Las Vegas as well? Same company or completely different?
No, we're a different company.
I'm curious on the licensing. Can you speak to that point? Like, what does it take to get licensed? What type of license is it? And I don't know if you mentioned if you already have licensing or if you're pursuing that, but just, is there, just maybe explain that a little bit better. I mean, is there a possibility you won't get licensed? How does that lie in your plans to build the facility? Just maybe fill us in a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we meet the criteria, we will receive the licensing. I have the exact licensing in here. It's
the residential treatment license through the Department of Human Services Office of Licensing. It's the state manages the licenses for these facilities, and they have their own criteria and standards. And the plan that we've created complies with all of those licensing requirements.
And do they, so imagine you obtain the license initially, do they speak to how the state monitors the license, or is it renewable year by year? Just how does that work?
Yeah, you get the license, and then you have to do, I believe, annual renewals on that. And I believe there's some follow-up inspections and whatnot that can be required.
And the staff, I think you kind of touched on it, is going to consist mostly of like licensed or certified social workers. I don't know all the LC, WCS, or whatever, all the initials, but the staff is going to mostly consist of that type of educated person. Is that what type of staff you're expecting to have there?
Yeah, so our medical director will be a psychiatrist, so they'll be able to prescribe medications. We also will have psychologists on staff that will be licensed as well. Then we'll have counselors and other medical professionals, and then kind of the other things to house. We'll have to have a cook. We're going to have a admissions coordinator, residential manager. So there's quite a bit of staff that comes along with it.
About how many will be, the reason I ask, I know you said that it meets code for parking, but our code says we need 1 parking space for every 2 beds plus 1 for every 2 employees. So I'm just curious how many we're planning on having there and how many parking spaces you guys are planning on putting in to make sure that we meet that.
Yeah, it's going to fluctuate, but we've done our staffing plan, and we will have adequate parking for the amount of employees we'll have at any given time.
One follow-up question to what I asked before. I know I asked if you were related to the company that was in Draper or West Jordan. Are you related to any other companies, or do you have other facilities like this anywhere else?
No, my partners have other facilities, yeah.
Can you tell us what some of those are so we can maybe look
They at this time, this is a sensitive thing, so my partners didn't want to be disclosed at this time.
All right, sorry, let's keep this orderly. I don't want to.
Can you tell us about, is it like an open type campus? Can people come and go as they want to? Can they walk on the street? Are they kept inside the house? How does that work?
No, that's part of our safety plan, and we will have staff there. There won't be anybody leaving the facility. It won't be accompanied with one of our staff members.
Will the doors be locked, or how do you plan to do that to keep them in? Is there a curfew? Is there trained security? What will you do in order to keep them from leaving?
Yeah, I mean, so there will be supervision. So I mean, we'll likely keep the front door locked, but I mean, these are kids, so they're going to need supervision. And so we will have 24/7 supervision, making sure that everybody's accounted for, everybody's out of the facility. And if there's a visit that's required outside the facility, they'll be accompanied by some of the staff. So the most important thing, like we're going to have cameras. We kind of talk about our security plan, but it is our job to keep track of these kids and to make sure we're adequately supervising them. And we do have a staffing plan in place to make sure that that's accomplished.
Will kids be coming in from out of state? Where do your clients come from?
Yeah, so we're going to a little bit more of the higher end market. We will be marketing to kids from Utah, but my partners kind of specialize in kind of, they have a pretty big network, and so we can pull from a lot of different markets. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be a little bit higher end. The facility's gonna be very nice, high end, brand new construction. So our pricing is gonna be, our admissions is gonna be a little bit more expensive than average.
And will these kids be sent there by their parents? Will this be from the court system? How does that work?
Yeah, we're a little bit higher end, so we're gonna have an admissions coordinator, and that's gonna be, they're gonna have to, our prices are a little bit higher, so we're not gonna be doing the court ordered, things like that. These are gonna be fairly affluent families that are looking for management plans for their children.
Is these plans typically covered by insurance, or is this all out of pocket?
Sometimes covered by insurance, but most of the people, it's gonna be private pay.
So there's no public funding that goes towards this?
No.
Is there a curfew at nighttime?
Yeah, well, nobody's leaving the facility without so if somebody's leaving, it's gonna be during business hours, essentially, because it's typically gonna be appointments, things of that nature. But most of the kids are gonna be staying on here. We really like this site because there's a lot of open space around us. We're on actually 60 acres. In the interim, we plan on creating some trails and kind of leveraging the area, the beauty around there. And so, but if we do a nature walk or that thing, they will be accompanied. We're not going to. The kids are always going to be accompanied.
That was going to be my next question, is what is your plans for the 60 acres?
We have the core of our facility on the 3 acres. So we haven't developed our plan for the additional acreage at this time. So we plan on using it, but not doing anything permanent. So, I'm walking around, doing nature walks, accompanying nature walks, things of that nature. On the 3 acres that we're going to do the landscaping and whatnot, we'll do some fun things for physical activity, which will be accompanied. So if we go outside and do volleyball or, some other, basketball or whatnot, they will be accompanied at all times.
So you're purchasing the entire Lot 3 parcel?
Yeah, we have it all under contract, that's correct.
Are they allowed visitors, and if so, is it only family, or are they allowed friends? How does that work?
We have a pretty strict visitor policy, and so typically I believe it's not in this kind of summary of the business plan, but that's part of the treatment plan that is worked out, whether they can or can't receive visitors. I think it's very infrequent. It's usually, from what they're explaining to me, not very beneficial to have a lot of visitors. So that's not really part of that. It'd probably be an exception versus a rule. They need to be, when they're at the treatment center, they kind of need to be 100% in. And so that's part of what our admissions coordinator goes over with the families, of what we can allow, what we can't allow. But visitors are going to be, I think it's pretty discouraged. It's not usually that helpful in the treatment process.
You said they'll be supervised 24/7?
That's correct. Nobody's ever going to be, the kids are going to be sleeping there. Our staff will not be sleeping there, but we will always have a staff member that's awake. And there will always be a staff member there 24 hours a day.
So one of the concerns that I have, and you may be able to speak to this, Brandon, but with adults, you can do a background check. You can see if there's been any history of violent offenses or sexual offenses. But with kids, my understanding is those things are protected. So is there any way to screen and see if any of the individuals staying there have any of that in their background? And if so, can that be provided to the city so that we're aware of what we're bringing in?
So we're going to have an admissions coordinator, and that's kind of their job. But the privacy is a big deal for us, like HIPAA and whatnot. So we won't be providing the names of our patients to anybody. That's a bit. We're targeting affluent families, so privacy is important to these people, and with HIPAA, there's all kinds of regulations for that. So we will not be providing background information on the.
Even if it keeps their name out of it.
The admission coordinator has that. We have our kind of standard rule of ethics, and once we admit somebody, their information is private.
And what about the background checks on the staff that will be working there? They'll be working with children. This is in the close proximity to an elementary school. Will you do background checks on those individuals, and will that information be provided if requested by the city?
That's our policy. I mean, our governing body would be DOPL, so we would be looking to DOPL. Now, if the city wanted to be a liaison with Doppel, and if there's some disclosure requirements there, they're gonna be the ones that, once we get the conditional use permit, they provide the licensing, and so that they govern us, so to speak, so we don't want to be subjected to more governance than we have to be, so they're the agency, but I can tell you Doppel takes this seriously. They have a lot of criteria, and I think the city's in good hands with Doppel's requirements.
Will this be a co-ed facility?
Yes.
What types of safeguards can you put in place so that there aren't any issues that arise from that?
Well, we have numerous different levels. We'll have supervision. They won't be sleeping in the same rooms. We try to segregate by floors and things like that. So we will put safeguards and make sure that we follow industry standards, meet or exceed industry standards. And that detailed protocol will be developed by more so by my partner. They have more experience in that. It's going to have to be signed off by the medical director, and also in conjunction with our psychologists consultants.
Okay. A couple of other questions that I had. Why Hooper? What made you choose this property in this location?
Well, we were initially looking at this. So I've been involved in this property for some time. I initially identified this as a good area for residential development, and so we kind of went down that path. The current zoning wasn't really favorable for what we were looking into doing. We were looking at opening up the master plan, and so that didn't. We kind of hit a dead end there. There was an unwillingness to open up the master plan to look at options there. I think it's zoned right now for 1 acre, and so once we realized that as development it just didn't pencil at the 1 acre zoning, we pivoted. We really like the property, feel it has good long-term potential, and just kind of said what are some other uses, and that's when I got in contact with my partner, started talking to them about the property, the location. There's another one that's being proposed up in Summit County, so there's some synergy right now. Utah's also there's some very successful treatment facilities in Utah. It's got a good reputation as a good place. It's nice to go into more rural areas. Like Hooper, it's kind of an ideal area where people kind of hit the reset button. A lot of our customers come from larger cities, and so it's appealing to them to kind of slow down, get away from the digital world, and we feel like Hooper, and especially having the 60 acres, it gives us a lot of options. It's also very appealing for the clientele we're targeting, having the 60 acres. Just having that big of a campus is very attractive. So there's a lot of things about this property that make it very attractive.
Are you planning on subdividing that 3 acre parcel off at any point in the future, or?
We don't really have a future plan for that. I mean, I know that with the current zoning, doing a bunch of residential lots doesn't make sense for us. And so I think we're really kind of want to see how, we feel like this is going to be very successful, and potentially, we're looking at all options down the road, like where we go from here.
The current plat does show non-developable. Right now, I printed it off today. Do you have any information on that?
As far as what goes?
Well, so the current plat, we printed that off today, and it says that it has a non-developable land distinction on there. And is that because we're trying to get this approved to subdivide, but we're not subdividing? So why does it have that distinction on there? Do you know?
If it has that distinction, how can we offer a conditional use permit in the first place? Because the distinction says Torghaven non-developmental land division.
Not currently approved for additional development is what it has on the plat right now.
Do you have any idea why that is, or what that is?
That's what I'm asking you. I'm not sure.
Well, there could be some acreage on there. So we have 60 acres. There could be something I know there's some wetland property way at the back, and so nobody's going to be encroaching or building on wetlands. So that may be a no.
I can show you this.
Okay.
It has it on lot 3, which is what we're looking at. And if you just look right under there, that's what the what the county has.
Maybe you can answer that, Brian.
Yeah, so I think that's because it went through so there was there's 3 lots, and then the Torgaleys divided that into 4, and so it would be better for them in the future, but that wasn't a subdivision for development, and so that's what that division was. So I'm not all the way sure the process of the city, but I think they're asking for a conditional use permit to see if this will work, and if they get that, then they would go through I think it's the same thing as the subdivision process to make that a developable lot. Right now it's just a parcel.
Usually, and I haven't looked at this one specifically, but usually what we do is sometimes you have a big piece and you peel off like an acre for just like, say somebody wants to have their kid come, you peel off 1 acre, but then we go ahead and put that distinction on the rest so that they don't later in 10 years come back and want to peel off another acre and then another acre and then another acre. All of a sudden they have the whole thing subdivided without going through the subdivision ordinance. So a lot of times what we do is something like that, we fill out the 1 acre form, say, great, you can build on that, but the rest of it's non-developable unless you come in and go through a subdivision process. So my best thought on this is it's something like that. It doesn't prohibit you from considering a conditional use permit. However, it doesn't, if you were to grant a conditional use permit, they would still have to comply with all other city ordinances to actually develop that piece. And if that includes going through some kind of a subdivision process, whatever that may be, you're not waiving any requirement on them. So, if that makes sense.
What will your signage look like?
We put a sign up there just to make everybody aware of what we're doing, but we're not going to have any signage.
Okay. And I couldn't see very well when you were showing that, Brian, but can you show us where the driveway is and where the parking is going to be, if you don't mind?
So you see the parking is going to be in the rear, so that you won't be able to see the garages from the street view. So you kind of come in, loop around, and then park like that. I think it helps the facade of the facility.
Okay.
So you're claiming you want, it's a 3-level, correct?
Yeah, we'll have a basement and the main level and an upper level. Yeah.
So the basement is ground level?
Well, we're going to kind of build up the backside so that you will get a little bit of on the architectural plans you can kind of see on the front end you get a little bit of daylighting. Sorry, on the rear elevations you kind of can see we have some daylighting, so we're going to have to build up our front when our driveway comes up. We'll build that up so that our front can be a little daylighted, and then that'll let more light into the basement area.
On your policies. So can you speak a little bit to, let's say you have a resident who is breaking the rules, who makes a run for it, who knows what. You have pretty strict standards as far as staying in the program, or would somebody like that be allowed to stay, or can you speak a little bit to that? Would a person that's causing issues in the neighborhood or causing a disruption to the neighbors, would they be staying? How would you deal with something like that as far as the community is concerned?
Yeah, no, great question. So we have part of our admissions coordinator, their job is to kind of go through the admissions process and then also the rules and whatnot. And we do have strict criteria. It's for everybody's protection, the communities, and also the other patients that are going to be at the facility. So we're going to have a strict protocol and it will be followed. And we will meet, and not just meet, we will exceed industry standards as far as safety goes, and make sure that there's things in place. And then, yeah, if you do have a rule breaker, it's going to be a strict policy. And that honestly, that's part of our marketing plan too, because nobody wants to send their kids to these facilities and feel like their kid might be in danger because of somebody else who paid a lot of money so their kid could come here and break rules and cause problems. We're like, no, we are very strict, and we are fair across the board. The rules are the rules, and we don't bend them.
When you mentioned your clientele is 17 and under, what is the minimum, the lowest age that you would take into your facility?
I think that's in our kind of in our plan.
Everyone here didn't get a copy of that, Bill, so if you could speak to that, that would be great.
That says 13.
At one point
Yeah,
it says 13.
13 to 18, yeah.
Is this gonna be the first or initial place that these kids come to? Is there gonna be a program ahead of this that they go to, and this is kind of the final phase for them? I know some programs have like a woods program or whatever that the kids are sent to first before they go to a residential treatment facility. How will this one work?
Yeah, that's kind of coordinated with the admissions coordinator, and so we don't have any specific exclusion criteria there, but we do have the inclusion criteria, you know, what's going to be a good fit for us. So they're gonna really custom fit that and provide kind of what that protocol looks like. And you know, I don't have all those details with me today, but it will, you know, from talking to my partners, there's going to be a pretty specific screening process. The admissions coordinator it's a big job, and there's a lot that goes into that, and we make sure we get the right fit there just for everybody's safety.
Are there different licensing requirements, like the Department of Health and Human Services? I know there are a lot of different licensing facilities like related to what you're doing, and so this one is specifically drug and alcohol addiction. Are there other licenses you're going to seek to obtain, or are you solely focusing on drug and alcohol addiction adolescent individuals that come in? Meaning, I don't even know what different licenses there are, but say, you know, someone that specializes in someone with violent tendencies or somebody that's addicted to something else. I mean, is it limited just to drug and alcohol addiction, or do you branch out beyond that, I guess is the question. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. Casey, you're helping with the licensing. You want to talk to that?
Like would it exceed your license ability to take someone that wasn't addicted to drugs and alcohol? I guess might be the question. That's some other problem.
I don't know that I have the answer for that for you today on that, but I can get that answer to you.
Okay.
We definitely would make sure we comply with all the licensing requirements and obtain all the necessary licensing that we need for the type of clientele that we have, certainly.
The only reason I ask, not to put too much pressure on you today to answer, but the only reason I ask is if we're going to grant a conditional use permit for a drug and alcohol addiction program and limit it to that, that's why I asked. But is it the scope beyond that, where you would want a conditional use to cover more than that, or would you come back in and say, look, we need to amend our conditional use to envelop this other area that we're now seeking another license for, if that makes sense? So we want to be pretty specific when we analyze the conditional use request, and the way I read it, it's just drug and alcohol at this point.
That's the initial idea. I believe the conditional use application, though, is for a children's treatment facility, as that's defined under the code. And as you know, it's a little bit broader than just drug and alcohol addictions. So I don't know that it needs to, unless you believe it needs to be more specified than that.
It is our business plan, though, to target addiction, specifically drug and alcohol addiction.
Can you speak to what drugs? I mean, drugs is a pretty broad statement. Is there certain types that you're targeting over others?
That's going to be going over the admissions coordinator and then coordinated with the medical director. But it's very broad as far as, I think alcohol's well defined. As far as drug use goes, I mean, if somebody's, I mean, we don't, these kids get a hold of things like, you know, prescription drugs, you know, but they could even be prescribed that and then develop an addiction to that and need it where the parents just can't handle it. And sometimes the parents are enablers in this process. You know, there could be a medical procedure that was done and they're given some meds and then they enable their kids. And so we need to get them out of that setting, and the admissions coordinator, the medical director they kind of coordinate that. So it could be abusing prescription drugs. A lot of times it's going to be illegal drugs, street drugs. So it's going to be pretty broad. And the medical director and the admissions coordinator are going to kind of say, well, are there certain addictions that we just aren't going to handle? And that very much could be the case. But that would be more the medical director and admissions coordinator kind of creating those protocols if there's certain addictions that we're just, for drugs, let's say, that we're just not going to treat.
So you mentioned, or in our packet, I think it was mentioned that there's a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence that surrounds the entire property. When you say entire property, are you going to have like a gate that is locked that people need to get in and out of, or how much of it is going to be fenced?
Yeah, no, thank you. When we say the entire property, because it is 60 acres, our plan isn't to fence the whole 60 acres. It's to mainly kind of fence the area that's landscaped. We haven't really developed a plan on whether we want to put a gate on the driveway or not. We're open to that if the planning commission feels like that's an issue. We haven't really determined that one way or the other, but we're definitely open to put a gate on there, like an electrical gate. And then we do want to do the fencing, but we are going to put some gates to get us access to the other 60 acres. So in the back, so for the trails, that kind of getting out into nature, like I talked about earlier, we have a gate there. And we would keep that gate locked, but we don't have in our plan right now to put an electrical security gate on the driveway, but we're open to it.
As far as you said there were going to be cameras. Will somebody be monitoring those 24 hours, or what's the purpose and the function of those cameras? How will that work into this?
It's just going to help our staff and help us manage it. My other partners, they kind of get into the logistics of that. I don't believe somebody's monitoring those 24/7, but they are a tool that we use just to make sure that the idea is that it's going to be supervised at all times. We are going to know where the kids are at, and that's just an additional tool we will have.
So another reason for asking how much staff is going to be on site at one time, I'm just curious. I know you said you'd have people to cook and there's going to be a director and things like that, but as far as actually supervising where those kids are and if one of them sneaks off or something, I just am trying to see how much staff are we going to have compared to how many children are there?
Yeah, no, great question. So during the daytime, there's going to be more staff than during the evening. I believe that there's going to be, at any given time, at least 2 people on site, even during the sleeping hours. I believe that's the plan.
So I have a question. I'm not sure if this would be directed to you or to Brandon, but as far as if this were to get approved, can we do it where maybe it's a probationary type thing where each year they have to show that their licensing and everything is up to speed and there haven't been any violations, where the city can say, no, we're going to not renew it because of this, or yes, we are?
Well, so generally speaking, any conditional use permit, right, not just this one, but let me start maybe with that. Any conditional use permit that you give somebody, the permit is subject to the conditions that you put on the permit. So if that individual violates the conditions you put onto the permit, you probably would have that applicant come in, try to explain what's going on, and if they can't cure those violations, you could likely then terminate the conditional use if they violated those conditions. The only other way, though, that you would be able to get rid of a conditional use that you put on a property would be if they abandon that use for a certain period of time or something like that. But as far as the probationary period, I don't know that I would call it as much that versus if you wanted to have a review of some kind to make sure they're complying with the conditions that you placed on the use. Let's say, for example, this discussion of the fence going across the driveway or not. Let's say you decide, yeah, we like that idea.
The entire 60 acres to be fenced.
Well, so whatever you decide is the condition, right? if you want to have a look later on and make sure that it's being complied with, certainly someone from the city could go check it out. If there's an allegation that conditions are not being complied with, you would likely have the applicant come back in, talk to them about that, see if it could be rectified. If it could not, that would violate the conditions of the use, and that would be a problem, right? So.
One of the other questions that I had, let's say this gets approved and then 4 years down the road, they abandon this property, they don't want to use it as a residential treatment facility. As a city, what are our options? It's in a residential area. We don't want it to turn into, okay, we're renting these rooms out.
Well, no, I mean, it would be subject, let's say it's abandoned as a treatment center and the conditional use runs, it's not been used for a year, so the permit runs. It'd be subject to any other zoning requirements we have in the city. I mean, it would be like any other property that's owned by somebody, they're gonna have to keep and maintain it, keep it upkept so it's not a nuisance property, and then for whatever they want to use it for, it either complies with our zoning, or they'd have to come back in and ask for another conditional use and get that approved. But it would be no different than anybody else that owns anything in Hooper. They'd be required to make sure it's upkept and not, some sort of nuisance attraction type property.
Sorry, I keep asking you questions, but another question that I have is, so if something were to happen of a criminal nature, whether it's in facility or a kid gets out and something happens within the community or the school, is there any liability that the city would have by allowing this to go in?
No, the city wouldn't have any liability because we issued a conditional use permit. The owner of the property and the business that's operating the facility would have that liability. We're simply granting a conditional use for the property. We're not exposing ourselves to liability that's committed by the property owner. And then just to speak to that more broadly, if something happens on the property that violates the law, it'd be no different than any other property. If sheriff would be called, it'd be looked into, and charges would be levied if appropriate. I mean, it'd be no different than any other property.
So as a condition of the conditional use permit, could we require that any inspections, corrective action, findings, anything like that they receive from any regulatory agency be provided within 30 days to the city so that we know if there's a problem?
I think if it violates one of our conditions we placed on it.
So if we put that condition on, then it's...
And I don't know, I mean, it's a little hard to answer that question because I know it may run up against some kind of privacy law that we wouldn't be able to penetrate it. I don't know, but if it's something that we're allowed to look at, but, there's no other law that prohibits us viewing it, and it's one of the conditions that you place onto the use, then yes. So it's a little bit hard to answer that question. I don't want to say, yeah, we have access to whatever, and then, there's federal privacy law that stands in the way of it, and that's, beyond our control.
Do you have any more questions?
I know. I don't think I have any more questions.
We can talk about it some more. I just want to get it open up for public
Yeah, no, I
comment.
think- I think that's all the questions I have right now. There's some other things I'd like to discuss as a commission, but
How do we want to best handle this stuff?
Thank you.
Ask. You guys sit up front real quick. We're going to let people come up and ask questions and then have them answer.
I think that what I would do is limit it to public comment, and then if you want to take note of maybe some of the questions that you feel are relevant, then I would think it's more efficient that it's not a question answer period. It's simply a public comment, and then if you feel like there are questions raised, then we can have the applicant come up at your leisure if you want to ask them on the spot or if you want to ask them at the end. But it ought to be questions coming from you directed to them, not from public directed to them, if that makes sense. It is just a public comment, not a question answer.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Come up to the microphone, give your name and address, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Morgan will be holding a sign, so if you go over the 3 minutes, we'll close you out.
I'll try to be.
There's a trap door that's gonna open underneath.
Yeah.
I will try to be brief. I think y'all have heard enough from me and his here.
You can
So,
try to talk louder.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, give your name and address as well.
Okay, 35, I'm Pac Rico, it's 3501 South, 5100 West in Hooper. Just real quickly to summarize what I heard, the license is in work. We can't know who the partner is that carries the experience.
Sorry, Pat, can you try to speak into that microphone just so we can hear you a
So
little bit?
we don't know who the partner is who carries the experience. We don't have any insight into who's allowed to come here. The ground may or may not be in question. Didn't sound like anybody who has a disciplinary problem is a candidate for expulsion. And I mean, these guys seem really good and well-meaning, but they're new. And everything I've seen in terms of the research I've done, there is a learning curve associated with this in terms of violations, and that has to be considered. And then we may or may not, if I'm hearing right, Brandon, we may or may not know and be able to consider if there are state regulatory violations. So all of that kind of being said, it's kind of like, I got more questions than I got answers to on this. The next thing I would say is, the application that I read said Group Youth Home Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. Can anybody map that to HCC 10.2 for me? Okay, I assume no.
Well, you gotta give us a second. We don't just have HCC 10.2 pulled up, so.
Does that count against his time?
Yeah, and I don't want it to count against your time.
It might be easier if you ask a specific question that just
Yeah.
references to a
Okay,
code section.
so here's what.
We don't know what you're asking.
Well, let me just read it. 10.5.1, allowed uses, okay? It says, if a proposed use of a property is not specifically listed in HCC 10.2 base zones, the use shall be prohibited, except as follows. The Planning and Zoning Commission may determine a proposed use not listed in HCC 10.2 is equivalent to an allowed use. Okay? So let me circle back. Can anybody map Group Youth Home Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center specifically to the code that we have?
So I looked this up before, and when you go to that section of our code, they have allowed uses for residential, commercial, agricultural. Under residential, a drug and alcohol treatment facility is allowed in every residential zone except for the high density residential and the PUD zone, I believe is what it is. But when you look under the definitions in our code,
They're 18 and over.
that's what it says. Drug and alcohol treatment facility, an establishment or portion thereof that provides permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation, and provides a treatment program for adult patients 18 years and older with a drug and or alcohol use problem. This definition shall include a detoxification facility, inpatient facility, residential facility, clinic, and outpatient facility as they relate to drug and alcohol treatment.
So it seems not to fit.
Well, it doesn't meet the definition of what's in our code in my mind.
Okay.
But,
So,
I mean, this is not a facility for 18 and older. It's a facility for 17 and under. Unless you guys found something different. I saw nothing else besides that.
can I make one final point? And that is to say, the language says the commission may determine and then set about to create some sort of an equivalency. Brandon, does may mean shall, will, or must?
I'm not going to give you legal advice. If that's what you're asking.
No, I'm just saying.
It's just public comment.
Is plain meaning of may have anything to do with shall, will, or must? In other words, it is up to you guys to decide if you want to engage in defining some sort of an equivalency. And hopefully I get a chance to finish.
Thank you. You can have Stacy come up and take her 2 minutes if you want.
Hi, my name's Colby Hymas. I live at 3701 South, 5650 West in Hooper. My position is coming from a first responder in Salt Lake County and a parent of students who will be attending the school which is in the proximity of this proposed facility. I'll begin by saying that I am not unsympathetic to the needs and plight of the individuals who would utilize this proposed facility. In fact, I'm pursuing a graduate degree in behavioral psychology in order to help veterans and first responders who suffer from many of the same psychological issues that the people in these facilities also suffer from, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse disorder, clinical depression, anxiety, etc. Furthermore, I have several friends who I served with in the United States Marine Corps and Fire Service that suffer from some of these same issues. I feel deeply for these individuals and sincerely want to help them. However, I believe it is a bad idea to put this facility in close proximity to a school or residential neighborhood. I have seen firsthand some of the things that go on in these facilities and some of the issues that individuals within these facilities suffer from. Most of the time when we get called to these facilities, it stems from drug withdrawal and the symptoms associated with it. Most of the time, the individuals we are there to treat are extremely agitated, and often we are called there because the staff cannot handle them. That's basically when the security they're speaking of goes bad, which it does quite often. Furthermore, oftentimes, when we go to these facilities, specifically after hours, there's no one on site that is trained in social work or mental health issues. It is often some kind of mentor who may have successfully graduated the program, etc., and they're the ones that stay there and help all the psychologists and so forth leave. Most of the time, there's not even a psychologist on site. There's a director, but usually it's more of a social worker or something like that. It is in my opinion that many of these individuals require clinical help in a clinical setting with someone trained extensively in mental health issues. The issues we often respond to at these facilities include suicidal ideation, sometimes homicidal ideation, sometimes abuse, and oftentimes violence. Furthermore, on several occasions, the individual who we're there to help has actually fled the facility and is found in the surrounding neighborhood. I do not feel comfortable as a parent with my kids being at a school where they would be playing at recess, possibly walking home, etc., with a facility such as this close to it. These individuals are often struggling in a very dark place. I'd hate for something traumatic to happen. There is a place for these facilities. It is just not near a school or residential community. Our youth of today have enough issues without having to witness and possibly be influenced by the issues that these individuals in these facilities suffer from. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mindy Lane. My address is 3524 South, 5160 West. This property will border my backyard. I have not heard one answer as far as number of staff at night. I want a firm answer because that is when things go bad. Their 6-foot fence, is that going to stop them from coming to my yard for whatever? We're not prepared for that. There's no answer on what if they are addicted to other children. No answer. Will they be coming for that as well? It's not clear in their, whatever they handed out to you guys, not to anyone else, of course. If you don't know who the company is, how do we know that they're legit? We don't, they won't disclose the real company name. We have not enough information to even warrant thinking about this. It's schools, young children. This is not the Hooper way. Now, yes, the Hooper way is to help our fellows, our current neighborhood, the people in it. But these aren't the people in the neighborhood that are needing the help. They're bringing them in. This is a for-profit business. So they don't care as much about helping, I think, as getting money in their pocket. If this was a nonprofit, it would seem more like they were looking to help the individual. I'm trying to remain calm, so let me breathe for a second.
Doing a hell of a job, man.
Anyway,
into a nature walk. Not sure, if you only have a little bit of staff and the doors aren't locked and there is not a locked gate on the front driveway, how do you maintain those people in the 60 acres? That's a lot of acres to go wandering around. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Come on. I'm done basically because I'm going to get too worked up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Rose. I'm 3752 South, 5250 West, in Hooper, of course. And I'm going to come from a place that sounds going to be very selfish. It's going to affect our property values. I mean, I really firmly believe that. I work in the mortgage industry, and I don't see this being a positive thing for home sales. If I list my property and they drive down the road and someone says, well, what's that big, you know, because there's not supposed to be any kind of multifamily, because it'll look like some kind of multifamily unit to me. So that's where I'm coming from. I agree with everything else when it comes to the children exposure. I think that's wrong. But I'm really sad that they're thinking that it's a good place to have children come in from out of state. Let's just, I mean, I'm a little bit with Mindy. I get a little worked up. These are rich kids that their parents are dumping because they don't know how to handle them. Thank you.
My name is Teresa Harper. I live at 5052 West, 3500 South. I am directly across the street from where this is going to be. We have a lot of young children in our neighborhood because it is a new neighborhood. I don't want to see this come to my neighborhood because what if when they decide to expand, all of a sudden it becomes violent people, stuff like that. I don't want to have to worry about my safety or the safety of all the children in my neighborhood. I think that is ridiculous that it would even be proposed to be put there with all the neighborhoods that are going to be around it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Stacy Greco. I live at 3501 South, 5100 West. My property is right next door to this facility, and I agree with what everybody else has said. One thing that I do want to stop and ask, in the meeting that we had, I can't remember, the last Planning Commission meeting, my husband asked the Planning Commission if they would please put a halt on conditional use permits for health and human services, specifically for children treatment facilities, daycare facilities, daycare home, group homes, drug and alcohol treatment facilities, foster home, group foster homes, and residential care. And the reason being is none of that is written out in our code, and we need to have time to write that stuff out in our code. It was in the meeting minutes, but it didn't make it to the agenda. So I do ask the Planning Commission to make a motion in tonight's meeting to put a hold on further conditional use permits until Hooper can write out their code. Otherwise, these guys will just run over top of all of it. Who's to say they're not going to try and put other facilities right there? Because we don't have that. Other surrounding cities, they all have it written out in their code. Now, my husband gave the Planning Commission, and I'm sorry I'm not yelling at you guys, I'm just very passionate about this, but my husband gave the Planning Commission a bunch of conditional uses that if you guys do decide to approve this, we are not West Haven, we are not Ogden, we are not Draper, we are none of these places, we are Hooper. We look like Plain City, we look like Marriott Slaterville. In their code, it states that, and you guys have all of that information, and anybody that wants it, give me your address, we'll give it to you. But it states in Plain City, for example, I believe you're the city attorney also, Brandon, for Plain City, it states that they will only have 3 non-related people in a facility like this in their communities. In Marriott Slaterville, it says the building can only be 4,500 square feet. they're talking at about 11,700 square feet. My house is 3,200 square feet and I live right next door. I agree with the fact that what the lady said, that it will look like a big thing. And one more point that I want to point out that I think is very, very important is not even an eighth of a mile from this facility is the Ogden Bird Refuge, and 4 months out of the year, you're going to have people down there with guns. And these kids are not, they will escape, and if they go down there, God forbid they attack somebody and get a gun in their hand. And that is something that the must take into account. You guys might not be responsible, but we have to be responsible adults in looking at these types of facilities. And the people that say, or all of the research that we've done, it says that these types of facilities have huge problems. And we need these for our kids, not out-of-state, high-priced, money-making kids.
Hi, my name is Michelle Pilarczyk. I live at 3461 South, 5500 West. I am directly across from the back end of the 60 acres that we're talking about. They're talking about 3 out of 60 acres. They have no idea what they're going to put on the other side. And just as she just said, I live there. During hunting season, it is like World War I, II, III, whatever. I know, I live there. There are cars up and down the road. That's where people go hunt. And why would you can't have nature walks. It's a big flat field. And when it rains, there are huge standing water puddles. There's no reason to put that there and have another 56 acres. That, what are they going to do with it? I want to know what they plan to do with it. I don't want more, oh, well, we got this one, so we've got our toe in the door. Now we're going to put in some for kids that have mental health issues instead of drug and alcohol problems. And I'm sorry, when you have children who are addicts, who are addicted to anything, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever, they have issues that should not be contained and treated in an environment where there's that many young people. You have a whole new subdivision that's very tightly packed, and there are a lot of kids in there. There's another school that should not be around that many young children. Thanks.
Amen.
Jordan Benson. Yeah, 3564 South, 5050 West. I live across the street from where the facility goes in. When I was looking through the first, let me pull it up here, the first request to open the general plan, the statement that came across was, request the zoning of the property be reconsidered to better fit the surrounding developments. This doesn't fit the surrounding developments. If that was the initial request, it is deviating from the initial open the general plan request. Additionally, one thing, since this is, of course, I'll leave the emotional side of it out, because it's been quite emotional, but one concern that I significantly have is they specifically state they will use the new lift station. The distance from this lift station is actually quite significant. I don't know it, I'm not a mechanical engineer, I'm not a pump station engineer, but based off of that distance, there will have to be interruption of the Rawson Ranch neighborhood to the adjacent area. And they're going to have to dip into that facility, and that hasn't been addressed. If there's a plan, great. Happy to see a plan. Seems like you're shaking your head and you have an idea already.
Yeah, it's designed to service the station.
Perfect.
It's probably going to cost them $100,000 to hook up to that sewer system.
Gotcha.
So that's going to be paid for as part of them building on that, developing on that lot.
Okay, so that answers that. One other thing that I noticed, it appears to me there's potentially wrong representation here today. The Fogel Hooper Group, as they've so called it, the LLC, they own all that land. All the questions have been directed to the land developer, who is developing the land and knows nothing about the actual facility itself. So a lot of the information we received, for example, how many people will be on staff, varied throughout the evening. So I don't think we can trust a large majority of the information that has flowed in through tonight. And then again, as has been brought up, I'm concerned about future facility expansion in both footprint and scope. There's been a lot of non-committal language used tonight from the Fogel-Hooper group. We think, we believe, we haven't figured that out yet, we can't tell you. That really raises a lot of concern on making a decision when no information is forthcoming and when there's a lot of concern within the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Haley Greco. I live at 3501 South, 5100 West, borders of Blue. I just felt that there was a lot of safety concerns because in my mind there was no security, there was no, and I work in this industry, I see it firsthand. The children, they can't regulate their emotions, they get mad, they don't want to be there, they'll come at you. The supervision is people like myself. Do I look like I could handle a 17-year-old boy who is 6 feet tall? I cannot, but that's why there is security. And the fact that there was all this limbo about, oh, well, there's some, supervision. I supervise the kids that I work with, and I see them every 15 minutes. Stuff still happens every 15 minutes. You still catch them doing things they're not supposed to do. They go at the doors. I heard that maybe the front door would be locked. Are there other doors? Are there windows? You don't know. And then, let's see. The last point that I'll make is I asked that one of the planning commission members please make a motion to revisit or rework the CUP application review process with regard to citizen review time and anything affecting it. And then I would like to give the remainder of my time to Patrick.
I don't know, do I got about 10 seconds? I just wanted to finish my thought related to ATC 10.2. I can't figure out how, again, I have way more questions than answers, but I can't figure out how what's being proposed maps to our code, and you guys have the ability to say it's prohibited. It's just that simple. And so I would just say this. I would like to ask one of the planning commission members to make a motion to deny the proposed conditional use permit because the proposed use of the property is not specifically listed in HCC 10.2 based zones, rendering the use prohibited pursuant to HCC 10.15B, allowed uses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Lane. I live at 3524 South, 5160 West. I'm right south of the blue. So my wife is Mindy. Basically, to me, this is kind of a no-brainer. The answers provided by these individuals are very ambiguous at best, very, very gray. Didn't have a lot of answers as far as are the patients locked in there? We heard they're supervised. Well, the supervisor can watch them walk out the front door if they want. If they're in this facility, are they required to be in this facility for that specific amount of time, or do they have the liberty to say, I don't want to be here anymore, I just want to leave? The answers were not very good for the city of Hooper. They were very shallow, like I said. And I don't believe that they provided any sort of good structure to their business plan. And I think the most telling part of all of it is, like a lot of other individuals says, their business partners, they're unwilling to disclose who their business partners are, their revenue stream, any sort of legal actions being taken against their business partners or anything like that. Why are they building it here? Why are they not building it in Holiday?
I'm Elizabeth Martin Taylor, 4497 South, 5200 West, Hooper, Utah. A couple questions I have is how close legally can a facility like this be constructed near a high school or elementary school? Are we within the legal parameters of that?
Well,
know?
I don't know.
Okay, so that's a question I think that needs to be
I
looked at.
measured it out on Google Maps and like property line is like 3,000 feet. So I don't think that there would be.
I don't know, if there's some sort of regulation.
Well, you can't
that
build
dictates
like
something.
a gas station that sells alcohol near an elementary. I know there's some distance that they
Yeah,
have to
I'm saying, I think it's like 1,000 feet. This is like 3,000 feet. So.
Well, I don't know, I'm just asking the question. Food for thought. The other question I have is, will this facility be locked down 24/7? Do you have to badge in and do you have to badge out so that they keep those kids confined to the facility? They're not able to exit the building at will. So that's a good question, I think. And my third question is, what kind of tax base does the city gain from a facility like this? I know that, that revenue is important. We don't have a lot of retail tax base coming in, and I'm not financially into this, so I have no idea what kind of revenue can be generated to Hooper City based on this type of facility. Because if we're going to bring in a facility, we might as well get a tax base out of it.
My understanding is we do not, I could be wrong, I guess, but that we're a residential treatment facility.
But if it's a nonprofit, we should get a profit from it.
I don't know what kind of tax ramifications it would have for the city, nor whether that would be really.
But if it's for profit and they're high income earners that are sending their children here, if we're going to sacrifice for our community, we should get a tax base out of it. Comment. Thank you.
I'm Sabrina Charlesworth, 3725 South 5650 West. And I'm going to be a teacher at the new school near the proposed drug and rehabilitation center. And I feel it is not the most suitable location. While I understand the need for such facilities and the importance of it, me personally being benefited by family, I see the importance of it, and I've gotten the rewards of a facility like this, and they are super important, and I support them 100%. But as an educator, my priority is the safety and well-being of my students. A drug and rehabilitation center nearby may introduce an element of uncertainty and potential risk that could compromise the learning environment. Students should feel safe and secure and comfortable in their surroundings and the presence of a facility addressing addiction. Related issues may create an atmosphere of unease. Anyone who's involved with anyone with an alcohol or drug, their main focus is their addiction, and that is the only thing that they are focused on is their addiction. And as a teacher, just going through the drills that you have to practice with children, it is painful. In a lockdown drill, as you're sitting in a dark room waiting for police officers to come and pound on the door to let you out, and you're trying to keep these children quiet and safe, and I feel that we're bringing uncertain danger to these kids with bringing this in. So in my opinion, it's not great. I support them, but maybe we could find a different location for them.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Archibald. I live at 3527 South, 5160 West, just to the south of where they're building. It would be in my backyard, essentially. I have concerns. As a father of 3 boys, having this facility in my backyard with people that are struggling with addiction, that are unpredictable. And as a city, I think one of your greatest responsibilities to the citizens is to provide safety. When we moved out here to Hooper, that's one of the reasons we came out here, is because we love the community, we love the feel of it, and I feel like, one of your responsibilities, there's 2 ideas as far as safety is concerned. There's the idea of physically being safe, but then there's also actually being safe. So there's the feeling behind it, and then there's actually being safe. And I think you compromise both of these things with this facility. With my kids, if this facility is in the backyard, we're going to essentially be neighbors, backyard neighbors with these people that are highly unpredictable. I would ask you to personalize this yourself. Would you be okay with this facility in your backyard with the people you love the very most? Because I would challenge you that you would not feel that, and you would have a lot of questions about the safety of your family. So this for me isn't about making money or anything else like that. For me, the safety of our community is the number one priority. And you guys have the ability to have a big say-so into whether or not we keep our community safe. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Robert Wells. I live in the 3575 West Haven area. I'm in the neighborhood literally across the street. For those of you that did not know, that there is 2 schools, new one being built up in West Haven that's 1.2 miles away. That neighborhood that my son's a part of, that we live in, he will see that facility every single day. More than my son will see that facility because we are walking distance. So all of the kids in that area are within walking distance of the West Haven School. Not to mention you also have the Quest Academy, which is also 1.2 miles away. Now, I understand that there is a bus route too that goes along that main road. There is a bus stop literally at the mailbox in that corner of my neighborhood that I live in. Whether you guys realize it or not, there is heavy traffic for kids right there off of that road for school. So I just wanted to keep in mind that we also have a neighborhood where we have 2 law enforcement there. They have brought up the point that there's not enough law enforcement in the area to even go to a call if one is needed. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Austin. I live at 3892 South, 5500 West. Just a little bit west from the facility. I have a few questions. I come from a place of experience. My father's house is from here to the parking lot from a facility called Island View in Syracuse. When that originally got put in, they go out in rural areas because they feel like they're not going to get resistance. People aren't going to make a big fuss, and that's a great place to put those. I'm in complete opposition of the project because of the experience from my father's house. There is people who get out. It is a security concern. From time to time, cars are being broken into. He had to install cameras on his house. There was somebody in his backyard at one point. It's been nothing but a problem. And I challenge you to look it up. If you get on Google, it's like 1.3 or 1.6 stars. And a lot of the reviews are the local people. It's West Syracuse, way west of R.C. Willey's. It's been bought and sold several times. It's not a good idea. I think that the treatment and the addiction is a noble cause, but I don't think it benefits Hooper. And that's the other thing I would say, is what do we get? What does Hooper get out of this? How does this an amenity that helps Hooper? What does Hooper get to benefit from this facility? It's absolutely nothing. And there was a conversation about liability. You know, maybe the tail of liability from the city attorney, Brandon, is like, we have a conditional use permit, we don't have liability. You're not liable civilly, probably, or criminally, but you're definitely liable morally. And this is the Planning Commission. You recommend things to go forward to the City Council, and I ask that the Planning Commission do not recommend this to go forward to the City Council. It's not for Hooper, it doesn't benefit Hooper, it brings nothing of value. Let's not do it. Thank you.
Hey Commissioners, Tim Schultz, 4495 West, 5850 South. Hey family, how y'all doing? Like the gentleman before me, I come from a place of experience, not only from a facility, but as an addict. I am 11 years sober. I really didn't want to bring that up. I wasn't even planning on talking tonight, but the passion kind of filled the room, and I felt the need to explain a couple situations. I was raised very, very humble, and quickly realized that addiction was a part of my family. I was brought into a very affluent facility by finances from my grandma. In that facility, I learned that it was a fraternity with all of the children and teenagers that I was with in that building. We plotted against the staff. we learned from each other how to sneak out and get what we wanted. Okay, and I want to be really deadly serious here. If you want drugs, you can find them. And if you have a problem, that is your only thought process. I have a 5 and a 6-year-old, both boys, and when I asked them what they want to be when they grow up, they did not say they wanted to be a construction worker. They want to help people. And I am all for helping people, but this is the wrong way. So many folks before me mentioned that if this was a nonprofit, this would be a completely different conversation. These facilities charge hundreds of thousands of dollars per child to come into these programs to babysit. There are no programs in place, and there is a lot of hush money being thrown around inside those walls, especially with affluent parents. When a student or when a child gets in trouble, they stay there because somebody slips a check. I am not okay moving my family into a city that prides itself on taking care of each other. Bringing this facility into this area for no gain is not the right thing for us to do.
Hello, my name is Dylan Robinson. I live at 3223 South, 5100 West here in Hooper. I think that this proposed development is not being fully honest with the 60 acres behind it. That I feel like they're trying to kind of slip that into the conditional use permit and potentially do extra with that and kind of slip it past you guys on that. I also feel that it will cause additional police usage in the area, which is not being considered. We have one officer for Hooper right now, which is not going to be enough to maintain control over a facility like that, in my opinion. I just kind of overall think that there's got to be some legal reason why it can't be there close to the school. I feel that the security that they've mentioned of just cameras is inadequate. Like others have said, they should be badging in, badging out. There should be the security gate across the front. I mean, cameras are a reactionary what happened, not a stop it from happening. So I don't really consider them to be security, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Hallie Laws. I live at 3539 South, 5100 West, which is on the left side of that blue square. My other neighbors are over here. And my dad is actually a psychologist for several different youth centers that were drug and alcohol. He was a drug and alcohol abuse therapist, I guess. So he was a director of Cinnamon Hills, the Eagle Mountain that's in Nephi, and they do like the off the beaten path kind of things. And then Rain Dancer Youth Center also. He has a lot of experience in this, and I've grown up around it my whole life, and it is not a good thing that I want next to my house. I do believe in the programs 100%, but I have horses, I have 5 kids, I can't see this being a good thing. These centers are very understaffed. It doesn't matter if you staff it, they have a lot of turnovers. And that's a high thing, that's a big problem to me. But I think that they say that they're gonna have the staff, they're gonna have enough people there, but it's never gonna consistency from what I've seen my entire life. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Carrie Brown, 3662 South, 5250 West. I'm close enough. Where they want to this. I'm happy to turn that on. We've heard including myself. Does anybody want it built here?
No.
No. I don't have anything else to say. I'd like to give my turn to Stacy.
I want to ask you guys, oh, sorry, Stacy Greco, 30, do I have to say that? Or should give me my time? 3501 South 5100 West Hooper. Again, I'm right next door to this facility. I do have a question for you guys. Do we have a Weber County Sheriff 24/7 in Hooper? No. Okay, how often is the Weber County Sheriff in Hooper? Do we know?
Not enough. Have you called him? He can't get to you at least within 20 minutes.
Yeah. Anyways, the question there being, if what the gentleman said that they're plotting at night, so now I'm going to be living in fear so that these people can make money from people from out of state. They're not even going to be helping our kids because they cost upward of 30 grand a month. So how are they going to be helping our kids? I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford 30 grand a month to send my child to a facility like this. Again, we have to ask ourselves, if we don't have the proper protection, why are we even entertaining the idea of having this at this place? Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there's an opioid addiction crisis in Utah, actually across the country. But we shouldn't be bringing children who have that are addicts into a community to put our children at risk. We should be thinking about how we can help these kids in a different way. I don't know where we put them. I don't have the answers to that, but my main concern is my family's safety and my community's safety. And if we don't even have a cop that's here 24/7 and these kids are plotting against each other or plotting against the staff. And by the way, these guys are not very well trained in what the information is because the state says, so if they knew anything, the state says that there must be one person on staff per 4 children. That's not 2 kids. If you got 15 kids, that's not 2 kids. Or 2 staffing. That's at least 3. Should be 4. And also, the state does not regulate what kind of training these people have at night. And like my daughter said, it can be her. Because then they can pay them less money and have more revenue for their pockets. And I think it's ridiculous that the developer of the project is here and not the actual people. I have a pretty good idea as to why that is, but I'll keep that opinion to myself until they are disclosed. Because I think as a community, we should be able to look at and investigate and look to see if there are any violations against those individuals. And the state does look at that. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kimmy Madden. I live at 5044 West, 3450 South. In addition to all the other concerns that have been happening, the requirement is that your children have to go to school. So in addition to them living there, they will be going to our schools, which are already overpopulated, and getting on the school buses, going to those schools. And like the gentleman said, if you're going to do drugs or anything else, if you want to do it, you're going to find it. And they're going to have more opportunities to do that.
My name is Melanie Rawlings, and I live at 5189 West, 3575 South. I have a little bit of experience with a nursing background, and some of my basic questions would be, again, what is the ratio of residents to staff? And are any of those staff medically trained in case you have somebody having a withdrawal? Are any of them specifically security trained? Or is it just somebody that has just graduated from high school and received a certificate to work in a facility? I am very concerned about this. At the moment, there is not an existing safe route to school, to the new school. It is still something that would be in process. Will that make that process much more difficult if this permit is approved? Because 5100 would be the route for multiple subdivisions, both in West Haven and in Hooper, for children to get to school. Thank you.
Back again, Jordan Benson, 3564 South, 5050 West. Going back to the open general plan that was submitted back December 12th, 2023, there was a comment on this government document that indicates we are working alongside other developers in the area and have support in requesting the plan to be open to consider the rezone request. I would like to know who those other developers are. Because either that's a bold statement that they have support from third-party developers that are not associated with them, or it's a lie.
We would have to look at that and
Yeah,
see.
and I understand.
Where in the general plan, was it a citizen's comment that was sent in or something?
Nope, it is signed by Robert, how do you pronounce his name, Torgel. At the bottom, the requester with Matt Lowe at clint@lowcompanies.com. So, and that's in
Is it Torgavy?
Torgavy. That's the group, and it's signed by them.
Okay.
And so it makes me question, right, why did they put this such bold claim that there's other individuals who are supporting them, other third-party developers? It kind of concerns me to put that on an official city document. And that's all. Thank you.
Do you want me to answer that?
I think we need to let's let all the citizens have a comment.
Tammy Hubbard, 5156 South, 5725 West. I own Roston Ranch. We developed it. It was my family farm. I had no idea about this. I am not supporting it. This is the first time I even heard about it. So if we're talking about other developers around it, I'm really close, and it's not me.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Matthew Lowe, 5500 South Hollywood Boulevard. I think it's conflating the issues because we requested in October 2023 to open the general plan, and that was in anticipation of getting a rezone. We got a unanimous negative recommendation, so we abandoned that. So it's really not, it doesn't apply to this. We're not asking the general plan to be reopened because we meet the zoning regulations. So that was just when we were trying to open up the general plan to go from 1 acre zoning to something different. Thank you.
All right, that looks like that's all the public comments. We'll go ahead and close that and bring it back to Planning Commission for additional discussion.
Is it okay if I say one thing?
Yeah, we'll be asking you questions, I'm sure. So.
Okay, great. I don't think I'm going to make any friends tonight. But if it wasn't me, it'd be someone else up here, so keep that in mind. I understand the fears and concerns that citizens have tonight. I'm not going to try to rebut them or respond to each point that was made. The fact is, though, that this mindset of, well, it's a good idea to have this group home, but just not in my backyard.
Yeah, put it in a commercial area.
Anywhere else but my backyard.
So,
It ain't next to your house.
hey, please. He's got the floor. Thank you.
And this is why the government passed the Fair Housing Act. It protects individuals with disabilities. They are entitled to equal opportunity. They're entitled to live in Hooper just like anybody else. And we're applying for a conditional use here, and the code is clear. The conditional use shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects to the neighborhood, which were shared tonight. The fears and concerns that were shared is not a basis to deny the application. If anything, it's a point about the application not being complete, and it's our position that it is complete, but if the Planning Commission deems that it's not complete and that there's some issues, then it's the Planning Commission's role to make those recommendations for the application. Not to deny it, to make the recommendations, or set the conditions for the conditional use. That's zoning ordinance 1058-6. Now, I live in Draper. We have our fair share of these types of facilities. And that's because Draper City had the same response to a conditional use or zoning application for a disability center back in 2010. And that was taken up in that situation. Draper City denied the zoning application. It went up to district court, was appealed, and the district court held that the city has an obligation to grant, according to the Fair Housing Act, the city has an obligation to grant requests if the request is both necessary to afford the disabled who might want to live in a residential neighborhood an equal opportunity to do so and is reasonable. The permit that was submitted, the conditional use permit is reasonable. There's reasonable restrictions, or through some recommendations we can get there. From what I could see, there's no, in every single residential zone here in Hooper, it's a conditional use. It's not a permitted use in any residential zone. The R1 zone seems to be the most well suited for a facility like this compared to the other zones. It's bigger acreage. As far as I can tell, there's no other children's facility like this in Hooper. This will be the first one. It's necessary for disabled persons who are wanting to live here to have a facility like this for them. Otherwise, they'd be denied the right and equal opportunity according to the Fair Housing Act, and that's illegal.
Sounds like you're threatening the city council.
Disability. That's not a disability.
So, members of the audience, please, members of the audience. According to the Fair Housing Act, hold on a minute. I told you I'd make a lot of friends tonight.
If you're in the audience, this is the applicant, there are different rules that apply to the applicant. Okay, thank you.
He's not the applicant, he's the lawyer. 3 minutes is up.
Okay. If you can't control what you're doing, you'll have to.
I can't control myself,
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you. If anybody else wants to speak out of turn, it's going to be the same result on start. We have to maintain control over the meeting. Okay? Thank you.
But is he actually the person that is supposed to be talking?
He's the representative.
He absolutely can speak.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Did you say you were ready for questions?
Yes.
Sorry, I
if
hear you.
you have questions.
Just to address what some of the people asked, and I think we already asked if you were going to have security on hand, and that was a no. Are the staff medically trained? So if somebody started having a problem, there's somebody medically trained on property at all times for that, or?
I mean, the bottom line is we are going to meet all requirements by DOPL. So DOPL is our governing body that's going to provide our licensing. They have a laundry list of items. We will meet those. And so that would be our commitment. They're going to be providing our license, and if we don't meet those requirements, they can revoke our license. We will also have security in place. And these things aren't meant to be prisons. We're not locking these children down. DOPL doesn't require that. We will be instituting safety measures, including a full security system for the house. So if something is open, a door's open at night, there's going to be security alarms that trigger. We're going to know where our kids are at, but this isn't meant to be a prison. It's a residential treatment facility. So I do want to clarify that.
Were there any other questions that any of the other residents asked that weren't answered? I tried to make marks on the ones that we had already addressed, but that was the only one that stood out to me that we hadn't already addressed.
I had a few people asked about like a badge system. You don't have a plan for that?
We haven't gone into all of our specific protocols on that, so I can get back with you on that.
There was a comment about the state code for staffing, 1 staff per 4 people. You're saying you're following all codes, so if that's the code, you're going to be following that.
Yeah, Utah Division of Professional Licensing governs us. We will meet all requirements.
Oh, somebody recently asked about these kids attending the local schools. That wasn't the impression I was under.
No, that's not part of our business plan.
Okay, I didn't think so. Thank you for clarifying that. No other questions? You guys go ahead and sit down.
Thank you.
Do we have any more discussion amongst ourselves?
I always have a couple things, right? So, I tried to do as much research on this as what I could. I reached out to a couple of different police departments, spoke with a sergeant at the South Ogden Police Department. He said when you bring a facility like this into the community, it can often invite other problems with it. A lot of the things police deal with has to do with residents being unruly or running away. He said a lot of these communities allow residents to come and go at will. If this is the case, you will need to be aware of the potential of theft and drugs in the neighboring community. We discussed the close proximity of an elementary school. He said the situation should be definitely scrutinized. These are already troubled kids. He used to work with the county years ago. He mentioned a similar facility that was located on 4000 South in West Haven several years ago. And he said that the police were there quite a bit. I asked about if these kids are trying to leave, how you will stop them. He said you cannot put your hands on them unless it's an extreme situation. So one of the things he suggested that we ask is if there would be trained security in order to handle those escalating situations. He said that from his personal opinion, he would not want this in his community. He mentioned 2 different facilities in South Ogden. He said one of them is in an area that would already be considered questionable, and the other one is in a business district. He said Hooper is something that's very different. That was one of the reasons why I wondered why you had chosen Hooper. We were not here, none of us, I think, when this code was put in place. But in reading the definition of what a drug and alcohol treatment facility is, it specifically states that it's a treatment program for adult patients 18 years and older. And I wondered why they had specified that, but after speaking with the 2 departments that I did, I think there's a reason. A lot of times when you have an adult facility, those people are there by their own will. When you have a youth facility, they do not want to be there. And so they do have a lot of problems with the kids trying to run away and with being unruly. I personally don't feel like this does comply with our code. Our code says that it is for a treatment program for adult patients 18 years and older. And I think there's a reason why that was put in there. I think that when you have youth, it's...
And then we had to have you speak to that particular
Yeah,
point.
we're applying for a children's treatment facility, which is an allowed use.
That's not what your
That's not what the application says.
It says a youth drug and alcohol
Where does
rehabilitation
that matter?
center, which is under the definition of a children's treatment
That's what
facility.
it says on their signage too.
In our code, it says drug and alcohol treatment facility.
But
That's what the
there's
allowed use
also
is,
a-
and that's what the application and your sign says.
But it falls under the children's treatment facility. So
I think we're mincing words, but
But you understand there's a children's, unless I'm misreading the code, under 10(2)(b)(4), it's an allowed use, children's treatment facility.
What is a children's treatment facility?
Well, the code says it's an establishment that provides permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation for more than 8 juveniles under 18 years old, and provides treatment for substance abuse, etc. So it does, well, I can read it if you want me to read it. Mental illness, emotional disturbance, developmental disability, mental retardation, or juveniles who have been identified by the judicial system as requiring treatment, therapy, rehabilitation, or supervision.
Did it say, sorry, I missed, did it say substance abuse in that list?
Yes, that's the first one it says.
executive summary, our residential youth drug and alcohol treatment facility, New Beginnings, located in Whitworth, Utah, aims to provide comprehensive care and support for adolescents struggling with substance abuse issues. This is what you just handed us.
Yeah.
And it says residential youth drug and alcohol treatment facility. That's what.
Does not matter.
That's what you said it was.
Yeah, it's a substance abuse. It's a children's treatment facility, right?
It's a residential youth drug and alcohol treatment facility.
It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing as our code says. Our code specifies 18 years and older.
Oh, so I think there's a couple of things. So in our code, under that table, right, there's a drug and treatment facility listing under, and it has its conditional use, right? And then that goes maybe the definition you're talking about. There's a separate line item for a children's treatment facility that probably goes to the definition he's talking about. So if there's a question related to what the application is, as far as how it was filled out, related to what they're asking for tonight. So if that's something that's maybe a distinction that needs to be made, then you could perhaps request that the application be amended to match up with what they're asking for. I get what you're saying.
I get what you're saying. I'm
But you
pretty
don't
clear on
have
what they're
to.
asking for. That's the way, that's the, because that's what they put on the brief.
Well, I understand, but rather than just having them come back again and fill out, asking for that conditional use, you know what I mean? We'll just be right back here doing the same thing.
I personally would, I'd love to hear from the actual, the backers, the people with experience. I think they could give us a lot more better answers. I feel like maybe it's something we table or maybe deny now based on the application not matching, and then they can reapply and maybe we get some better representation from their group.
Yeah, my idea is if you have questions on things that you want clarified, if there is a possibility to amend the application to match up better to what they're asking for, you're better off tabling it than denying it so that we keep the issue in front of us. If they want to make amendments to their application and come back fine. If you want somebody else to come and explain certain pieces of it better to you, fine. I think you're better off tabling it, keeping the issue afloat and in front of you than you are denying it, and then it just goes up the pipeline through appeal probably, versus staying, I think, in front of you while you're considering it. So that's my 2 cents. If you have issues about how it was filled out versus what you feel like how it should have been filled out, I think that's an amendment of the application issue. If you have questions related to issues that were brought up or questions that went unanswered, I feel like that's a tabling issue where the applicant could come back and maybe answer those questions better.
So this might be more question for you, Brandon, because to me, the experience matters, right? There's a learning curve to these sort of things, so we don't have to let Hooper be their guinea pig, right? What is the repercussion for? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I think you have the opportunity to put whatever conditions that you want to put on it, right? And then whoever's running the facility has to meet those conditions. So, I mean, you could have a situation where somebody comes in, asks for the permit of any kind, not just this, and you grant the conditional use, and then the business is sold, somebody else comes in, it runs with the land, they can take over that use. So I think it's more linked to the conditions that you place on it, in my mind, more than it is who's running it. But if you have questions on how it's going to be run that have gone unanswered, maybe because you feel like somebody may be able to speak better to those questions, I think that's a legitimate issue. I don't know that you would solely deny it just because of who the particular owner is, if that makes sense, because you don't have control over who owns it in 2 months. If you approve it right now, they can sell it. So it's
But they do
more,
have to come back in for, that's what we did, that dog kennel, you would have had to come back in and reapply.
well, the conditional use, they do run with the land. So if you approve a conditional use of any kind, it runs with the land. So I think it's more, all conditional uses are more linked to the conditions that you put on them to mitigate what issues are being caused by the use. And so if you have questions related to what this use really is, what kind of conditions are really going to help mitigate those uses, and you want some time to either study it on your end or more time for the applicant to come back and explain that better, it's a big issue, and I don't think you should feel pressured to have to make a decision if you have questions like that. And then certainly if there are issues with the application or how it was filled out, it's more appropriate to allow any applicant, not just this one, to amend their application if they want to.
So is this something that when we talk about the safety and the health and the well-being of the community and the concerns that have been expressed and the concerns that were mentioned to me when I reached out to the different police departments, and they said there's definitely more of police calls and things like that when you're dealing with the youth center versus the adult centers in their areas. And we have a school here. Do we not have leverage to say that this is not safe for the community because of the extenuating circumstances there?
I think you have the ability to question that, and then I think what then comes naturally is the applicant has to explain how, if those are the concerns, how those can be mitigated by conditions that you can place on them. And whether or not they're prepared to fully get into that tonight or not, I don't know. But if those are questions that you have based on what you've looked into, I think it's appropriate for the applicant to try to explain how conditions could be placed on their use to mitigate that fear. And then it's up to you ultimately to make a decision after hearing that, whether you believe those conditions would mitigate that fear or not. If there are reasonable conditions that can be put on the use to mitigate those fears that you've outlined, then state code dictates you approve the use. If all reasonable conditions that are proposed still don't alleviate the mitigate or the factors that you're concerned about, then that's when you can make that decision on whether or not you're convinced it mitigates those problems or not. So anyway, that's very a long explanation, but I don't know if you have enough information tonight or not to make that decision, because you have to be pretty clear. The other thing is with conditional use permits, if you deny one, it be pretty specific and delineate the reasoning very specifically, and delineate how there are no reasonable conditions that can mitigate those fears. So if you have fears, especially with this one, it's probably a better approach to voice those fears and allow the applicant either tonight or at a future meeting to come and propose conditions that can be placed on it, at least in their opinion, to alleviate those concerns, and then you consider that and then make the decision. So, and this is a big enough issue that it probably makes sense to take it a little bit slower than maybe some that come through. That's just my opinion.
Give some time to think about some conditions and.
A lot of times at these types of meetings, you don't really know what all the concerns are. Neither does the applicant until the meeting itself. And so that allows both sides to fully consider what those concerns are and if there are conditions that can mitigate the concern.
Will you guys be able to get the partner with the experience to come to a meeting next month concerning this? Okay. And that maybe answer some more questions from the public if.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question whether we are qualified, it just, myself, I have extensive medical background, business background, we're gonna comply with DOFL. So I can mitigate that to a reasonable degree. The fact that we are gonna be licensed by the Utah Division of Professional Licensing, that's a strict process. That's really the governing body here, and I think that is reasonable. And the applicant here is very clear. It's New Beginnings. I'm the manager of New Beginnings. I just said I had some partners that are going to be helping in the operation, and that's really irrelevant. I'm the applicant, and I can mitigate those issues. I'm qualified. I can, you know, we stand on our own 2 feet.
So no.
No,
I will. I was just going to add, when the commission is thinking through the different conditions and questions, it's important not to make the conditions so onerous and burdensome that it prevents the home from being operated, because that's another way of just denying the application. But we're more than willing to work with the commission and come up with some reasonable steps to ensure the safety of the neighborhood. That's a major priority for us too.
So I think whether or not you can't force them to bring in one person first step, but I think the better question is if you have questions that haven't fully been answered, maybe lay those out, let them come back and explain a little better if you don't feel like they've been answered tonight the way you feel comfortable with. Who they choose to bring back, if anybody, is up to them.
Can you explain why your partners don't want us to know who they are? What their reasoning behind that is?
Yeah, with this meeting, this isn't a fun process. I mean, you guys see it, so yeah, I mean, I'm here. The applicant is very clear on the application, and we will meet reasonable guidelines. And I've set up a lot of businesses, over 40 businesses in my life, so I have the ability, I have the expertise, if I'm at financial backing, and I can get this done, and I can meet reasonable guidelines. Thank you.
Do you have, a comment was made about, like, you guys seem to have, like, weak rules, was the comment made. Do you have, you know, your business plan? Do you have SOPs? Do you have, like, you know, something that we can dive into deeper to make sure that you have your a firm understanding of the business and the risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is the licensing. Like I got back to, I can bring all the requirements. We will comply with all the requirements from Utah Division of Professional Licensing, and those items that we deem that we're going to exceed, we can probably get into. But I think the operative thing is that, you know, State of Utah has done a bunch of these. They've licensed a bunch of these. They've been involved in this for a very long time. They've kind of set up that criteria, the minimum criteria of what it takes to run one of these things. They've set up staffing criteria. They're really the experts. These things are all over the place in Utah, and we will comply with the requirements of the state of Utah. So yeah, if we go to whether into a court afterwards, if we get denied, I mean, they're going to look at that. Utah Division of Professional Licensing is the governing body. It's not Hooper City. It's just say you either comply with what we have deemed necessary to be safe and secure, or you don't. Now, if there's other conditions that you guys want to impose, that's great. Like we would like to have those discussions, and we will do our best to address those. And like I said, I think the operative word is reasonable, as long as it's reasonable. And we have a footprint throughout the whole state of Utah that shows what's reasonable, what's been approved, and you know what hasn't. But Utah Division of Professional Licensing does, you know, I think that's a reasonableness saying, yeah, you have to comply with that because that's what the state and their expertise is determined is necessary to make sure these places are safe, secure, and effective.
So I think maybe one question I have is, so we've been talking a lot about the regulations that apply to the business, and I recognize there are regulations. What I'm not sure of is I'm pretty sure that y'all here are not maybe fully aware of what those regulations are as it pertains to your particular license, right? Because there's a whole lot of different licenses. So maybe that's where the disconnect's coming. I think it's maybe making sure that these folks know, what particular regulations apply to what permit you're applying for, and that may help them make a determination on whether they want to just say, yeah, that's great, those are the conditions, you apply with that regulation, or whether they feel like there are additional reasonable conditions that they want to put on top of those. And so that might, I guess if I'm boiling it down to the issue in my mind that maybe we don't know enough about, it's probably that one, because I myself looked up on the Department of Health and Human Services, their regulations. I tried to ferret through maybe what ones apply, and I found it a little difficult to zero in on what particular regulations would apply to what you're trying to do. And so if anything, that I think would help me, I don't know if it would help you guys, to know what particular license you're applying for, what regulations are involved with that, and then determining, okay, is that enough, or do we want more? That might lead to a more productive discussion. Because I think a lot of it is just, we're talking about regulations that exist, but maybe we don't all understand what they are, if that's a fair statement. And that may assist you to determine, okay, that's great, those regulations are pretty good, or here's 2 or 3 things we want to look into that might help that. In the meantime, I think it would be appropriate to perhaps amend the application to match up. If we're really talking about children's treatment facility, not the other one, it would be nice, I think, to clarify that on the application so we can make an appropriate decision based on what you're asking for, because there are different definitions for those different conditional uses, if that makes sense. And I think there might be some confusion based on what you're applying for under our table versus what maybe is on the application. That's also a fair statement. So we'd also give an opportunity to maybe clarify that, because whatever decision you make, I want you to make it based on exactly what condition you're asking for, so that we can line it up with that definition, and there's no ambiguity over, was it that definition or was it this definition? So those are the 2 points I feel like need more clarification.
Yeah, I can come prepared with that.
I'll entertain a motion. Brandon just told me that I'm allowed to make a motion, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we table this until our next meeting, so we have a chance to review some appropriate conditions, and the applicant has a chance to update their application.
Might I propose they also, in advance, provide us with the exact regulations they're going to be subject to based on the license they're applying for through the state. Just in advance, so you can study that.
Add that to it. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So we're here on our June, second Thursday of June's meeting.
Thank you to everybody that came in. Share your business.
Okay, you guys can shuffle out if you want to, but we're going to open up the meeting for citizen comments for items not on the agenda. Same 3-minute rule applies. And then the adjournment. So it's open for public comment if anybody has anything they want to say.
Before we do that, can I just address, there were a couple of things that were brought up by Stacy Grieco as far as us making a motion in this meeting for some things. If the item's not already on our agenda as a motion, we can't make a motion for that. However, the allowed uses that we have in our code, we already made a motion our last meeting to look at those this meeting, and it was pushed off till the next meeting. So we, as far as looking at those types of things that you're saying, the behavioral health, those kinds of things, we will be looking at, we should be looking at those our next meeting because they were supposed to be on this meeting.
So will there be a hold on any future permits for right now?
We can't do that without, first of all, I don't think we can do that, it would be the city council.
It'll be the city council.
So seeing none.
Can I read this one, you guys?
Yeah.
Sure.
Seeing no public comment, we're going to close that out, and I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion. I motion that we adjourn.
2 seconds.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.